Dave Baxter, and this video is about using Lightroom to make videos. It comes as a bit of a shock to quite a lot of people who are used to just taking photographs. They don't realise that Lightroom can happily manage video, and it's not surprising really, because a lot of photographers tend to poo-poo video. They don't really like it very much. They say, well, you speak to them, they say, well, I shoot a bit now and again, but I don't really do anything with it. And I didn't get the camera to shoot video, I got the camera to make photos, and that's why I've got Lightroom as well. And so quite often they have no idea or no interest in video. But practically every new DSLR camera you buy today can shoot video, and video does have its place. You know, it records the sort of feeling of a place, the sound, like obviously a photo can't do that. You use it in a different way. One doesn't replace the other, but it's usually very nice when you come back from a holiday and you can play a little bit of video as well as review your photos. So it does make sense to know how to put bits of video together. And one of the things that I find when I run my group, which is a Facebook page called Lightroom Lab, is that, well, somebody asked the other day, what's the best program for putting video together? And I said, well, you've already got Lightroom, why don't you use that? And the response was from several people, well, I didn't know it could do it. And so I thought, well, I'll write a tutorial about it, because I've written quite a lot of tutorials on the Lightroom Lab Facebook group, and of course these are written documents, they're PDFs, and it suddenly occurred to me, well, here I am trying to tell people how to put video together using Lightroom. I really ought to do it using video, so hence this particular video here. So this is a quick introduction, a crash course if you like, to processing video right from beginning to end. So what are we going to cover on this? Well, first of all, I want to talk about the requirements and expectations. The most difficult thing you can really give a computer to do is edit video. I mean, it's in the early days when computers were just used for typing letters and the emails and things, that's relatively easy. But once you start giving a computer a 2D image, large high definition image as a photograph to work with, that puts a lot of strain on the central processor in the computer. And if you start then giving it video as well, or video is just a very fast continuous sequence of lots of separate images, and so that puts a huge strain on the computer. So people say, well, I tried to use my little laptop, which is 10 years old, and put Lightroom on it, and it's very slow, and it didn't work at all when I tried video on it. And you will find this, if it's a very old computer, it's going to be slow. And that's simply because we've all got used to our computers doing things really quickly. It's not unusual when you edit video to have to wait sometimes hours for your little clips to be put together. You know, we're used to just quickly editing something and seeing the effects in real time, but it can be definitely worth taking tea breaks regularly when you're doing video editing. So obviously there's a requirement to try and make this happen as quickly as possible, and to do so you really need a fairly modern computer. One of the most important things you can do is to put the maximum amount of memory in your computer as you possibly can. I'm not talking about external hard drives at the moment, I'm talking about the memory that goes into your main computer, the stuff that's the RAM, the random access memory. That's the temporary storage that the computer uses just to quickly move stuff in and out at high speed. It needs a lot of that. And the problem is that if you just go to a high street shop and you buy a computer at a knockdown price there in one of their sales, you will probably find that that computer has only got just enough RAM in it to work. It has to have a lot in generally, especially for things like Windows 10, where the computer has an awful lot of memory requirements just to run the operating system, and so that can be a problem. But you'll find if you then start giving your computer lots of other hard tasks to do, it'll get slow. And the way it copes with this is, if it hasn't got enough memory, it takes a bit of information out of its main memory and it writes it to the hard drive, and then it takes a bit of the memory off the hard drive, the information off the hard drive, puts it back in its memory. It's called swapping. And this sort of stuff's going on all the time, and it's a very slow process. So if you don't have enough RAM in your computer, you'll hear the hard drive going on and off all the time, clattering away, and that's going to slow things down. So the first thing to do, and memory is quite cheap nowadays, didn't used to be, but nowadays it is. Whatever computer you've got, check how much RAM it has, and if it hasn't got it full to the top with RAM, you haven't completely populated it, it'll tell you in the information with the computer how much it can take. You can't just add it in ad infinitum. There'll be a certain amount. My Mac here, I'm using a 17, no, I don't know, it's a 27-inch iMac, that's it. And I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM in that, which is as much as I can put in it. So do that and you'll be a lot happier, because things will run faster. It's probably the cheapest, most effective and simple way that you can speed your computer up. The other way is to buy a more modern computer. And the reason for that is that old computers used to have just basically one processor in them, and it did everything it needed to. It would do all the normal computational tasks, and it would also handle graphics, which, as I said before, is a very complicated thing to do. And then later on, people started building computers with special chips in them which just handled graphics. They were called graphics accelerators. And if you've got one of those, then your computer can run graphics faster. Basically, you'll get all that kind of stuff. If you go for a computer that looks as if it's designed for gamers, because gaming, although I don't play games on computers, I won't put my hand up saying I do. I don't think I ever have, actually. But one of the things about gaming computers is that they are customized to handle video and high-speed graphics, and give you some of them have got 3D processors in and all kinds of things. So they are very good at doing exactly what we're going to try to do today with this. So requirements and expectations for your computer, well, just get it as fast as you can, but don't expect it to be lightning fast. Video does take time, and so don't have too high an expectation, but just put in as much RAM as you can. And if you've got an old clunky machine, especially if it's still running something like Windows XP, then upgrade. I'm sorry, but you do have to. If you get serious about video, that's generally what you have to do. So the next thing we'll be looking at is just finding and reviewing video content on Lightroom. Initially, you'll just see everything on Lightroom as if it was a photo. So in grid view, you'll see videos just look like simple photos. So what we want to be able to do is quickly find all your videos from amongst all your photos and review the video content in them quickly. So that's one of the things, because you need to be able to say, well, that's a rubbish video, that was accidental, oh, I like that bit but only the little part of it, so on. And you want to be able to quickly find those, review them, say, yep, I want to use that one and that one in my clips, and put all that together into a final video. And to do that, of course, you need to be able to top and tail each of the videos, because most video, let's face it, when we start, we shoot an awful lot of video of just our feet walking about, or the camera being put back in the bag. It happens to everybody. So you've always got to cut a little bit off the beginning and a bit off the end. Actually, you may only want just a few seconds worth in the middle of a video somewhere. So you've got to be able to do that, and Lightroom does enable you to do that. In fact, it's definitely worth doing quite a lot, because if you look at a film or television thing and just count how often the camera scene changes, you will find, probably to your surprise, if you've never done it before, that the picture is changing probably every 5 to 10 seconds maximum. It's quite rare to have anything more than about 10 seconds on any one thing. I mean, it's different if you're just filming a talking head, like in a lecture or something. But for any kind of interesting story, the picture is changing every few seconds. And so it's very important that you have a facility to be able to effectively splice all these bits together, cut off bits you don't want, and basically edit it. But that's not the only way you edit. You also need to obviously be able to adjust the exposure and colour and all that kind of thing, just as you would do in a normal photo. And people find that if they have a video and they've tried to edit it in Lightroom, and they say, oh, well, this could be a bit brighter or more contrasty or whatever, then they'll go into the develop module, and Lightroom simply says editing is not supported for video files, and that's all you get. So we're going to show you how to get around that. There is a way to do it. And then of course we've got to be able to take all our little clips that we've topped and tailed and messed around with the exposure and colour and tone. We've got to take all these little bits and put them in a different order if we want to, because generally you do not shoot video in the order that you're going to finally end up. You will be shooting all sorts of out of sequence steps, and so you've got to be able to shuffle them all around and then string them all together to make your final video. And then you need to export that as a video as one simple thing. So that's what we're going to be doing next. That you've got some video files and you've loaded them into Lightroom, probably copied them across to your external hard drive, because remember, video files can be quite big. You don't want to be storing them on your main computer's hard drive, so stick them on an external if you can. But wherever you've put them, you've now got to find them. So here I've got my Lightroom open at the moment. I've got 16,415 images on here, some of which are photos and some of which are video. Now, just as a general tip, when I'm looking, we're in Lightroom at the moment in library view and grid view particularly, as you can see from down here. If you hit the G key, this will get you into grid view. And I like to have my pictures set up so that I can see what directory they're in and what file name and file type they are. And you can see this on the top here. If you look at each of these, let me just big it up for you a bit. There we go. Make it nice and large. For those of us whose eyesight isn't as good as it once was. Nice big picture, and up in the top corner here you can see it says landscape, so that's the folder that this is in, and underneath it you can see, well, you might not be able to, but it actually says the resolution of the picture, and up here is the file name, and I've also got the date in which it was shot. So if you want to change any of that, just right click it and you'll get a nice big drop down and you can select something else. I've just got file name, I'll leave it at that. But if you want to add more information to that, you can have anything you like in these 4 sections. Now if you hit the J key, it will toggle between not showing anything at all. If you hit J again, you'll get just a limited amount of stuff here showing, and if you hit J again, you'll get your full size. I won't go into all that now because this is about video. The point is that video files have a particular type of file type on them, which you can tell by looking at the end of the file name here. This one's DABL blah 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 .dng. So this is a digital negative. That's an ordinary stills picture. It's a type of RAW file, and I convert most of my pictures to DNG because they're slightly smaller than the conventional camera's standard RAW file. They're still RAW, they still have all the dynamic range of a RAW file. They may not contain quite as much camera specific information. For example, if you convert to DNG, you don't get information about the picture style that came on a Canon camera that happened to be switched on at the time. We don't really care about a lot of that actually. So I generally convert most of my stuff to DNG. What else have we got in here? We can see on this one here, that's a TIFF, that's tagged image format. Again, that's just an ordinary photograph. That can be 8 or 16 bits deep, so quite often it's quite common to see TIFF files, especially as that's the format that Lightroom passes to Photoshop, and Photoshop passes back to Lightroom when you're doing editing in that kind of workflow. Again, that's not video. So how do you find them? Or you could scroll up and down a bit and let's find some, see if we can find an instance of something that isn't a DNG or a TIFF, or say one of Canon's CR2s, which is their RAW one. Let's down a bit more. Perhaps I should make this smaller again so we can see a bit more. These are still DNGs. Well, as you can tell, you know, with 16,000 photos, it can be quite difficult to find what you want. So this is where collections come in. One of the nice things, if you look on the left hand side about collections, is that you can set them up to automatically include pictures that simply they conform to a set of specifications. So they're a member of the collection by virtue of the fact that they are, for example, TIFF files, or that they are above a certain size, or that they were shot on a certain date range, all that kind of thing. So you can set that up so you don't have to drag them into the collection. They're simply a member of that collection by virtue of their parameters that apply to them. And one of those parameters you can set up is video file. And if you look down here under collections, you can see that I've got a number of different collections set up. Some of these are collection sets, but these little collections here with a little cogwheel in the bottom right corner, those are smart collections, and you set these up yourself by just going plus, create collection, create smart collection. There we are, that one there. So you would do that, and then you set up the parameters to add stuff to your smart collection. In this case, I've already got one. It says all video files, it's called. And if I right click it, I can edit it as well. I can edit my smart collection, and if you do, you'll see there's a box that pops up, and you can set this up yourself. This one is set up, it's called all video files, and the parameters I'm looking for are just match any of the following rules, and you can just keep adding more rules by hitting this plus button each time. But this one contains 2 rules, and because it says match any of the following rules, it will be a member of this particular collection if either it is a video file type, or if the file name contains MP4, which is a video, a very common video format. So I'll just cancel out of that. So that's how you do those. So if you get one of those and then click on that smart collection, then hey presto, boom, you've found all of your video files. I don't have to look through thousands. In fact, it says down at the bottom here I've got 205 photos. They're called photos. They are actually videos, although actually that is not entirely true. Take a look with me at some of these images here, and you'll see that they're either called, they end with .mov, but Canon cameras will do this. They produce, generally early Canon cameras produce .mov files. Apple Mac systems produce .mov files, so you know, that's just a common video format. Other types are MP4. If I scroll down here, we might see an MP4. Maybe not. Yeah, there's one. It's MP4, that's another one. So this particular smart collection is enabling me to find all of the video files, whether they're MOV or MP4, so I get to see the lot. But Lightroom still tends to regard them down here as photos, so it says I've got 205 photos, one selected, but they are mostly actual video. Now the only exception here is that I do have some photographs like this one, which is this is the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, just outside Jerusalem. This looks like it's a 1-second video, and as I go onto this, you'll see it says .mov, so it looks like a 1-second video. It isn't actually a video in the normal sense. You can't just play this for 1 second. This is actually a 360-degree panoramic photo that's interactive. But that's just me being odd here. I've got a few of those. Excuse me, my mouse has just failed, and I've just got to go over to my graphics tablet instead now. The mouse's battery's run out. Right, okay, well, graphics tablet now. Same thing. Now notice, as I mouse my cursor, or now graphics pen my cursor, over some of these images, can you see how they are jumping about? So just simply mousing over one of these gives me a quick review of what's in there, and this will happen on all the others as well, so I can quickly say, well, that looks like might be a nice one. This was at a guitar concert at our local village hall, so we can go over that. So that's how you find them, and that's how you review them. If I wanted to see them in any more detail, then I can, but I need to go into a different view. What we're in here at the moment is the grid view, and what we need to do is to go over to the loop view here. Notice we're still in the library module. Everything we'll be doing here, except the final piecing it all together, is in the library module. We don't actually go into develop at all. So we've seen how to do this. Oh, this one here, this is another example of something which isn't quite a normal movie file. This one, if I just mouse over this one, that's my garage door, and then this is a high-speed picture of me driving out to the local village and back. And this was actually shot, just for your information, on a Canon 50D, which doesn't even take video. It was done by that particular instance, as I recall, was done using Magic Lantern. I installed Magic Lantern in a 50D and managed to make it shoot video at 5 frames a second, and so I got this super high speed one, but I won't show you that now, it's just irrelevant really. This one here is a time-lapse video of sheep feeding in a field, so you can see as I move my cursor backwards and forwards here, I can move the sheep around. You can actually you can use Lightroom for making time-lapse video. So if you've got a means of taking photographs every few seconds with an intervalometer, quite a few Canon cameras now will do it. Nikon cameras have had intervalometers in them for years. Canon have only just started putting them in their cameras. But it means you can take hundreds and hundreds of pictures and then load them all into Lightroom, and then Lightroom can turn that into a video for you, and that's what I've done here. So there we go. Right, so what's the next thing? Well, you can't really tell much just by doing this. You can, you can say, oh yeah, I remember that one. What you see on the front here doesn't really tell you very much about what's going on in there. Just, a picture of a garage door like this doesn't tell you that's a particular sequence. So you might want to find something that this shows you as the frame, as the frame that goes at the front of all of this. There's something in the middle there might be more representative. I don't know, like a high-speed shot down the road like that. And you might want that as what you see instead of that. And we can change all that. So let's go into that next. So on the next video, I'll be looking at each of these, or how to get into each of these little thumbnails and start topping and tailing them and looking at them in a bit more detail. So we'll do that next. This is Dave Baxter of Image Matters, and this is video number 3 in this special tutorial series about using Lightroom to make videos. Up to this point we've seen that Lightroom handles your videos in a very similar way to photos, in that they appear in the grid view as ordinary looking photos, and it's not obvious necessarily that they're videos until you look at them closely. But we've seen how to find them using smart collections, and we've seen how to quickly review them as well, so we can see which of our videos are worth using. But we need to go into it in a bit more detail, because almost every video you shoot will not be perfect from beginning to end. You might be just videoing your feet before you realise the camera's switched on, or when you get a little bit better, the first few seconds of a video may be just taken up with the camera focusing properly, and then when you've got it steady and nicely focused, you want to carry on from there. And so we need to generally be able to cut off the beginning and ends of most of our videos. So we need to go and do that accurately. You need to really be able to do it to sub-second accuracy. And if you were doing some really sophisticated editing, probably not in Lightroom, but if you were doing sophisticated editing, sometimes it's necessary to cut video frames one at a time, and to be able to, because there are 25-30 frames a second going on in video, and you need generally to be able to get down to that kind of level. But we'll get by with what we've got for today, and just show you now how you go into a little bit more detail to see stuff for the purpose of topping and tailing our videos. Because generally it's better to have lots of short videos strung together than one big long boring one. Of course you can end up with a big long boring one made up of lots of boring little sections as well, but that's another issue. Right, we've got one highlighted here. This is my screen, and over here it says all video files. So I've hit my collections, smart collections here, and so all we're looking at is video, and I've picked one here which I think might be of interest to you, although perhaps it won't be, but it does demonstrate the need to sometimes be able to go through a video frame at a time. So in order to get there, we can't do it in grid view that easily, so I'm going to, we can do that as I've already demonstrated, but that's not good enough. We need to see it full frame, as it were. So I'm going to go into the loop view here, which is this button, and now we get a bigger picture of it. So what do we see? Well, it's not very descriptive, is it? It's a very dark, uninteresting picture, so this would definitely be part of the image we'd want to get rid of. But let's quickly review what we have here. Now you notice we've got a separate little slider bar here with a play button, and if I play it, it starts playing the video. And hit the pause button and it pauses. There's a timeline here, and I can move this cursor along and see various different parts of it, and it should be fairly apparent that what we're looking at here is a group of people on a tour guide being spoken to in a rather nasty thunderstorm, and all trying to enjoy themselves. As I move this, you can hear a bit of audio as well. Okay, you can't hear a bit of audio. As I move this backwards and forwards, you will pick up the odd bit. If I just play it, there you go. You can hear there's plenty of thunder going on and lightning and so on. So not a very nice day for filming, actually. And one of those occasions where it's good to have a camera that's weather sealed. So I was, this is on the island of Crete. It's at Knossos. It was taken a couple of years ago, and on a particularly bad day. But so I was filming at this point, and trying to capture what the guide was saying for later on, but unfortunately the weather just got so bad that we had to give up in the end. And you can see the odd flash of lightning there. Now I can stop this at any time, but at the moment with this control all I can do is just play it and then replay it from different positions. It doesn't give me enough control to do any video editing, but if I hit this little cog on the side of this bar here, it's a trim video button, so we click that on and we get a better version of this control. I mean, it could just easily have come up like this anyway, but this little bit is hidden until you press that button. This time we've got a little film strip view on our timeline, and we can still move the cursor just the same as before. The interesting thing now is that we can use this cursor to define where we want to stop and start the video. So let's say I wanted to cut out this dark boring stuff here and just move it on. I'm just dragging it through until we get, say, to here. If I want to now start the video from that point, so get rid of the beginning of it, I can now do so by dragging this little icon on the left here and dragging it right, and as soon as it hits that cursor, that effectively hides all those frames in front, so that when we play it now it will start from this position. Now the thing to bear in mind is I have not deleted any frames of my video, they are still there. If I were to uncover this again, they'd be back. So this is exactly like, we heard a bit of thunder there. This is exactly like it is when you're doing editing on a photo, because you do changes to the photo, they're non-destructive, and it's exactly the same with video in Lightroom. So I'm just going to drag this here. I could have done that, I didn't have to do this in two stages. I could have simply started here and dragged this little pause button video thing there. I'm not sure what that looks like, a pause image, but it's actually the sort of, it's the image. It's a little icon that you use for cutting out. So if I move that, then it moves the starting cursor with it. So I can just do it all in one go and just move it to the point where I want this to start, or drag it backwards again. And that will set my beginning point. And I can do the same for the end here. I can drag the end in at any point as well. If I only want it to be that long, my video, I can now just play it, and I will get, I'll get just a very short clip, which is generally what you want. So you might just want a few of those, and you might then go on to another video and choose another little bit of it. And so we're reducing our total video to just lots of little short clips. Now on this one, the action of interest happens for me at the very end. So we've cut the beginning off now, so I want to just move along to the end. Now the thing about this is that it's not always easy to just use your cursor to move another cursor around on this bar, so you can do it one frame at a time. So if you look at the time stamp down here, we're at 1 minute 12 seconds. If I hit these little buttons instead of the play button, then I'm taking it fractions of a second. I'm taking it one frame at a time. So you can see all of this action's happening in under a second, because video is 25 to 30 frames a second. So by hitting these, I can take my video and position my cursor to within 1 frame accuracy. So I'm just going through 1 frame at a time, because I can't do that by dragging it. It just moves too coarsely. Keep your eye out to see if you see anything odd while I'm doing this. I should probably overshoot, but it doesn't matter. I can go backwards. I can go back a frame at a time as well, like that, if I want to. So I'll do this until we're ready. We'll find what we're looking for. Carry on. The suspense is killing you, isn't it? Here we go. There. Did you see that? Let's go back. Right, of course you saw it. There. At that particular frame, a lightning strike happened only a few feet from where we were standing, and the whole of the area was lit up with this violet light. Now, if I wanted to show somebody that again, I could go back into the video like this and say, hang on a minute while I tap this little button hundreds of times, and you'd get there eventually. But you can also turn this into a photo if you want to, because it is just a frame grab, and it's quite nice and convenient sometimes to just be able to run a video, find that fleeting expression or something that you would never have captured with an ordinary photograph, and just take that 1 frame out of the video and turn it into a photo. And you can do that on this little button here, this one next to that one opened and shut and closed the control panel. The one next to it's got a drop down with just 2 things. One is capture frame and the other is set poster frame. So if I hit capture frame, then you don't get much feedback from it, but what it does is actually now to make a photo. It's taken this particular bit off the screen. It saves you doing a screen capture, really, and it's now made a photo for you, which you can then save off as a JPEG or a TIFF or whatever you like, stick on Facebook and say, look, here's a picture of me nearly being hit by lightning. That isn't a picture of me, that's a picture of the guide at the time. Obviously I was behind the camera, and when the actual lightning strike took place, it was so violent that the camera stopped recording. I don't know why. It didn't seem to damage the electronics in the camera, but it started again afterwards. Right, so that's one thing you can do there. The other option here is to set the poster frame. If I click set poster frame, again you don't get a lot of feedback, but if I come out of this view back into grid view, you can now see that what was just an ordinary looking picture that sort of started, I can't quite remember what it looked like, it was quite dark before, but now when I take my cursor off it, the frame that you see is the one that I highlighted. It's the one I selected to say poster frame. So you can do that to make your videos a little easier to recognise, and I won't have to go searching around for it in quite the same way again. Okay, up to this point what we've been doing is cutting a bit of the beginning or a bit off the end of each video clip, and those are really the only trimming tools that Lightroom provides. So it may have occurred to you, well, what happens if I'm perfectly alright with the beginning and the end of my video clip, but there's something in the middle that I want to get rid of? How do I edit that? Well, that's getting a bit more advanced. So normally, of course, you probably want to go to more advanced software, but we're talking here about how do we manage to do this in Lightroom. And so the only way to do it in Lightroom is to fudge around the issue. Because we can only trim the ends of the video clip, then if we want to get to something in the middle, we've got to somehow split our video into two halves. And the way you do that is to use virtual copies. Now, virtual copies in video work exactly the same way they do with ordinary photos. In other words, it's the same source material, and when you make a virtual copy, all you're doing is just making an alternative version of the way it's edited. So in our case, we still have our single video clip, but we'll have one video clip which goes up to a certain point in the video, and then another video clip which carries on from that point. So we'll have access to two beginnings and two ends, which will give us the flexibility we need to cut out the middle bit. Let me demonstrate. Here's a video of a guitarist playing classical gas, and you can see here that he's playing away, and then at one point in the performance he decides to grab the microphone. I can't quite see where that is at the moment, here, somewhere around there, and make a rude remark to the photographer. He thought I was the photographer in the front row, but I was actually videoing the whole thing. So let's have a look, and seem to have lost it here. I'm using a graphics tablet. Oh, there it went. It's over there. That's it. I'm using a graphics tablet with a pen at the moment, and it's not as easy to use as a mouse when it comes to this kind of thing. So apologies for that. Right, here we are. So here's the first part of the video. Let me just play a few seconds of it. Okay, let me stop it there. I would probably take off the beginning of this after he'd messed around. Ah, that's it. So we want to go back where he first hits the guitar, and I can use these backwards and forwards single frame buttons to just capture that very first strum there. There. So I just take this in and then play it. Right, so that's got that sorted. But at some other point, a bit further on, he begins to notice that I'm filming him. And, well, he thinks I'm photographing him. So he starts making faces at me, and then I'm going to accelerate to nearly that point. Yes, here. He's beginning to make faces now and play up to me.
So my favourite pastime is just peeing off photographers. It's brilliant.
Right, so that's the comment I want to get rid of. So I need to get him back to the point where he was still playing the guitar and hadn't yet moved over to move the mic into position to make his comments. So we're not going to get this exactly right because it's got to be note perfect, and we can't really do that on Lightroom very easily, but we can get close. So if I just go back here a few times, I should be able to get him to the point where is it? Let's go back that way. Yeah, it's too fast. It's back there. See, we're still playing at that point. Let's drag this one across. And let's take it back and now play it a bit. Now, that could probably come a bit further.
So my favourite part.
Okay, so now we can take that back a bit more. These are only taking you back in fractions of a second, probably a 25th or a 30th of a second, because it's the frame rate of the video. Let's take it there. Whoops. Oh, moved it then. Right. About there. And I'm going to take this back and then we'll be done with this bit. So we'll have topped and tailed part of this particular clip. I'll take it to there. Then I'll move that one and just check one more time. Right, I'm going to leave it there. So that is our video clip. What I did forget to do is to make a virtual copy of it, as you may have noticed. So I'm going to make a virtual copy of it now and see what happens because I've already done the editing on this now with my topping and tailing of it, as much as I can do from that point of view. So I really should have made a virtual copy first, but I'm going to do it now. So we're going to say create virtual copy, and now with the virtual copy that I've made, that's going to have exactly the same timing on it. So if I now go into this, I've got another one which is just exactly the same time, but this time I can actually move. You see, it's all still there. This is the beauty of non-destructive editing. So let's get it to the point where it's just gone past that particular incident.
So my favourite pastime is just peeing off photographers. It's brilliant.
Right, so he's just plucked the guitar there, so let's just go back one bit before that. Let's go there. Try it from there. Right, that will do. I'm going to stop it there. So now I've got two videos, apparently. This one here and this one here. And then all we have to do is string them together. So later on, when we discuss putting video clips together to make the final thing, you'll see that that's how it's done. So this is just one video, and all we've done is make a virtual copy of it, cut the end off and the beginning off this one, which correspond to the chunk in the middle that I was trying to get rid of. And we'll see later on that that actually worked quite well. So that's all I can say about topping and tailing. It's about the full limit you can do in Lightroom. So the next thing we want to tackle is how to look at changing the actual tonal structure of the picture. If our entire video is too dark or too light or is the wrong color balance. So let's deal with that next.